I spent over 20 years of my life training psychotherapists, training existential, humanistic psychotherapists. And back in those days, we had a saying that awareness was curative. Awareness was curative. And that's morphed as the relational way of practicing came more into popularity and the intersubjective field, and how the session between the client and the therapist is co-created and so forth. The saying became contact is curative. But for me, now it's really clear that it's consciousness that is curative. It's consciousness that is curative. And I'd like to explain a little bit of why I've come to that conclusion. And it's primarily because if you are focused on awareness and the flow of awareness, now I'm aware of X, and now I'm aware of Y, and now I'm aware of Z. If you base your stability on that flow of awareness, it's much better than, I agree, it's much better than basing your stability on some sort of belief system or self-concept or concept of the world, because indeed the world is always changing. There's always, the world is in flux. And so if you have a static concept of how the world should be or how you are, and the world is always changing, and in fact, to some extent, your self-experience is always changing, then this is a difficult thing to reconcile. And particularly because, of course, those models of how things should be rarely match how things are. So you have that discrepancy. So I agree that awareness is curative if you're trying to find your security through the concept. But I want you to remember what I said, how I talked about the disconnection, the fundamental disconnection from consciousness, how that creates a sense of a primary fragmentation. And that primary fragmentation isn't solved when we shift from a conceptual, intellectual attempt to orient ourselves and have security to an awareness-based flow model, or flow practice, I should say. It isn't solved because, it's solved in those moments when in presence I become fully present, and in that full presence I start to experience the infinite. I start to experience the things that are the qualities of consciousness, right? I said in another video, I talked about how if I go on the inside and quiet my mind and pay careful attention, I notice that there's this timeless quality and boundless quality and feeling of satisfaction and so forth. And the same thing occurs if I become really present in the environment. If I merge with the environment again, I have this experience of expanded consciousness and merging with the sunset, or merging with the beloved, or merging with the sound of the birds and so forth. So yes, if you follow the flow of awareness and you come fully into presence, you come into consciousness. So there isn't, and that's why for so many years I was purely a Gestalt therapist, because I saw that this existential humanistic practice called Gestalt therapy was indeed a spiritual practice. And it was in fact the mysterious and the elements of consciousness that are in presence that is the curative element. So, okay, to be grounded in the flow of awareness and creative adaptation and novel behavior and all these things that we work to create a well-adjusted, functioning person in the therapeutic process, that's all fine and good. However, that fundamental disconnection is still lying underneath the flow of awareness. It doesn't solve it. It only solves it in those moments of peak moments where you're fully, fully, fully present. Then you get a taste of consciousness. So for me, the direct path The direct path is to go for the consciousness. If you go for the foundational base level, establish yourself in consciousness, in that timeless, boundless you that is self, that is, I want to say self-fulfilling. It sounds narcissistic. I don't mean it in a narcissistic way, but is fulfillment, that doesn't lack anything. If you ground in consciousness first, consciousness is curative. Then, as you start to follow your flow of awareness, you're not following it from that disconnected place, the place of deprivation, the place of existential angst, the place of exile from the universe. You're already connected. Now you're following it from the divine play. Now you're following it from for sport. Life becomes play. Life becomes sport. Life becomes, of course, work. I don't want to sound like an immature fellow that never grew up, Peter Pan. But it's a different way of being in the world when you're not grasping for the awareness, when you're not waiting for the next thrill, the next sensation, or the next peak moment through awareness, to follow that awareness towards the peak moment. So consciousness is curative. It's the most stable thing that you can practice. The dwelling and the being and the staying with that primary essence that you are. If you solve that foundational level, everything else is going to come into place.